Hi, welcome back to my channel. And in this episode, I want to talk about two very important concepts, and I'm gonna try to link them together. And these two very important concepts are one, the halving, the Bitcoin halving, and two, time preference. So these two concepts are very popular in the Bitcoin space, and they might be popular, at least the second concept might be popular in the Austrian economics space, but they're not very popular in the mainstream space. And also, it might not be very clear on how we can link them together and come up with a certain conclusion about these two topics and how they are related to one another, and how they are super important for your journey in adopting Bitcoin and buying Bitcoin and holding Bitcoin and maybe going on a Bitcoin standard altogether. So I'm going to start by explaining what is the halving and try to also explain what is time preference. And I'm going to try to do them in a quick and non-technical way just to get the message across and try to understand it just on the surface level to be able to continue with this video, so to speak. First things first, the halving. The halving is basically an event that happens every 4 years approximately in the Bitcoin network. So what happens is that basically the block reward of each Bitcoin block gets halved, as the name suggests. So for example, we used to have 12.5 Bitcoin being produced with each block, and then we got the halving in 2020 and it got slashed to 6.25, and now recently in 2024 we got the halving again and it got slashed to 3.12. So now this is what we have now. And what happens with every cycle of halving, we see the price going up. So the price goes up every time this event happens, not instantly, but on the medium to long term, the price goes up. So some people argue that maybe it has nothing to do with it. Maybe there's other factors that are affecting this phenomenon that we see the price rising. But I mean, if we look at it from an economics perspective, and it's like a basic economics concept that everyone from any school of economics agrees on, which is that when we have a supply that is going down or is decreasing and the demand maybe is still the same or even increasing, the value of the product, the commodity or whatever it is, goes up if it's a demanded product. So it's a simple supply and demand curve where the price is at the equilibrium where the supply can meet the demand. And in the case of Bitcoin, this is what essentially happens. So we see that the supply has decreased with every block that is being mined. So that means that the miners are getting less Bitcoin that they can actually sell on the market, and so they can sell less Bitcoin on the market, but they need to keep their operations going. In that scenario, they have to bring the prices up, sell the Bitcoin for more, and there's less Bitcoin to be sold. Now, of course, not only the miners sell Bitcoin, sometimes hodlers sell Bitcoin, sometimes just regular people buy and sell Bitcoin all the time. But miners, first of all, are one of the biggest market makers in Bitcoin, and secondly, they're the most natural sellers, so to speak, because basically their entire revenue is in Bitcoin and they have to actually sell it to keep the operations going. They keep a lot of it, of course. A lot of miners keep Bitcoin, save this Bitcoin, hodl it, but of course a lot of the Bitcoin have to be sold in order to meet the expenses of the mining, because mining costs energy and everything we know about mining. And so this is it. What I'm trying to say is that the halving occurs every 4 years. It halves the supply of each block, and when that happens, the value of Bitcoin goes up relatively on the medium to long term. How can we relate this topic to time preference? So time preference is, also in simple terms, is the time that you put to achieve a certain thing versus how much you're willing to not put the time for it to achieve it. I don't know if that's the best way to describe it, but basically, if I tell you that you can get $1 now if you wait 5 minutes, or I can give you $2 if you wait 10 minutes. If you choose the second option, it means your time preference is low. You don't want this $1 now to spend it on whatever. You'd rather have $2 to, spend it on bigger stuff. You can just buy 2 apples instead of 1. So basically, when you made that mental calculation in your head, and you chose the second option, which is $2, that means your time preference is lower than the person who did the same calculation and chose to choose the first option, which is the $1. So that is just how I want to explain it in very simple terms. How am I going to relate these two concepts together? You might already feel like there's a lot of relation between the two. Take this, for example. Nowadays, you look around and you see a lot of small gadgets or buildings or even cars and whatnot. They have this kind of mediocre architecture to them, this engineering to them. This quality has been lowered a lot in so many things, and that is because right now you can just go to some kind of a construction place, like a developer site, and you will see, like, for example, huge buildings that just came out of nowhere in a matter of few months. You have these huge buildings, fully finished, fully done, and ready to be used. So these buildings did not take a lot of time to be made. They were made in very cheap and low quality material. They were probably done in a very fast way, and other factors that could render this building kind of low quality. And so you see that a lot in gadgets as well. They might break down just after a few uses and whatnot. Like, for example, let's take the iPhone. If you take the iPhone 14 versus the iPhone 15, there's not a much difference between the two, because basically it just took 1 year between designing and manufacturing the iPhone 14 and designing and manufacturing the iPhone 15. So that's just 1 year of actual work and research and development and manufacturing that brought us from iPhone 14 to the iPhone 15. Now, let's take the iPhone 10 and compare it to the iPhone 15. Now, there's a huge difference in that. The camera is way better, the battery is way better, the operating system is way better, the whole device is way faster, the applications on it are way better. There's a huge difference from an iPhone 15 and iPhone 10. It's like the biggest difference you can just imagine. If we go even further, the first ever iPhone 3G, it had nothing. Basically, it just was a great phone back then, not gonna lie, but if you compare it after like 12, 13, 14 years of development and engineering and design and better ways of manufacturing, you can see that the iPhone 15 is way, way more advanced. So if we take 1 year of actual work, we will see that not much has changed. But if we take 5 years, we see a lot of things have changed. But if we take 10 years, we see extremely a lot of things have changed in the technology of making an iPhone. And so where I'm going by this is that I feel nowadays in our society, a lot of people think about things in terms of 1 year, few months. Where am I gonna be in 1 year? Where am I gonna be in few months? What did I achieve this year compared to last year? I think this mental framework is not bad. It's good to actually assess and to look 1 year ahead. It's not a very short-sighted thing. But when you think of it in terms of Bitcoin cycles, in terms of Bitcoin halving cycles, it forces you to think of things in terms of 4 years. So if you're a Bitcoin hodler like me, and you've been hodling Bitcoin for quite some time, you always think of Bitcoin and like, what do you have in terms of hodling? You always think of that in terms of Bitcoin cycles. So instead of thinking maybe that this year I have not advanced as much as I have compared to last year, it's better to think of things in terms of the last epoch, the last Bitcoin cycle, and how I was in 2020 compared to 2024. And personally speaking, I can say I have done a lot of things and I achieved a lot of things in this 4-year window. And obviously my savings and my hodling stack is way bigger during that period of time. So compared to 2020 and now, I am richer, obviously. That's because of the Bitcoin price, which I am looking at in a very low time preference fashion, as in I'm not thinking about the price now and what will happen tomorrow or next year or even 2 years. I'm thinking about it in terms of 4 years. And once you have this mental framework, you can actually be more encouraged to stack more sats, DCA more sats, handle those sats, handle those bitcoins. And actually, when you finish your first cycle, you will feel like, yeah, I've actually did something. And even though I didn't do it in 1 year time, I did it in 4 year time. And that's actually not that bad. So it's good to think of things in terms of wider time frame. And once you do that, automatically everything you do in life becomes, you start doing it in terms of less time preference. So you prefer less time over what you're actually doing, what you're actually trying to achieve. And yeah, that's a really, really great thing. And Bitcoin and the Bitcoin halving helps you a lot to actually build this framework for yourself. So yeah, that's it for this video. I hope you like it. If you have any questions, please post them below in the comment section. And don't forget to like and subscribe and share it with your friends, and see you in the next video. Bye.